Every city has a shadow economy. Every shadow economy has enforcers. Every enforcer has a code. And every code in every city, in every generation of recorded human history, has been built around one foundational assumption: that the most dangerous thing in the room is human. We open from altitude. The camera descends slow, unblinking, the way a predator watches from above before it commits to a dive. New York City at 3 in the morning is never truly dark. The grid glows. The grid breathes. And embedded within that grid, invisible to civilians, is a second city, built from encrypted coin, enforced by silent agreement, and policed by men and women who have transformed violence into professional craft. This is the world of the high table. Not politicians, not police, not warlords or generals, something older than all of them, a governing body of criminal architecture that predates nations, that outlasted empires, that has survived every war by simply remaining beneath the threshold of war. The high table does not fight, it arbitrates, and when arbitration fails, it sends specialists. These specialists have a name, though no official record. The world calls them assassins. The underworld calls them operators. The high table calls them assets. And tonight, on a rooftop 11 stories above the rain-slicked streets of Midtown Manhattan, one such asset is completing a contract. He is 43 years old. He has 17 confirmed eliminations under high table contract, 14 of which were classified as surgical. He wears a suit. He always wears a suit. There is something almost liturgical about it, the uniform of a profession that requires death to be delivered with ceremony. He kneels by the edge of the roof, looking through a scope, and he does not sense anything behind him. This is unusual, because sensing what is behind him is the skill that has kept him alive for 2 decades. He doesn't sense it because whatever is behind him chooses not to be sensed. Something is watching, and it has been watching for 4 days. We do not open on fire. We do not open on violence. We open on patience. The vessel is almost invisible against the black, not because it is cloaked, though it is, but because it was designed to belong to silence the way a shark belongs to deep water. It hangs in geostationary orbit, angular and purposeful, its hull carved from materials that absorb electromagnetic radiation across 17 spectral bands. It has been here for 11 days. It is waiting, evaluating. Inside, a single figure sits before a display that most human engineers would spend a lifetime failing to understand. The readouts are not in any language that has ever appeared in an Earth linguistic database, but the patterns are universal, the language of threat assessment, the language of worthiness. The Yachtja, this particular hunter, scarred and ancient by his species standards, bearing the marks of 47 successful hunts across 6 planetary systems, has been to Earth before. Earth was catalogued generations ago. It was flagged as a low-yield hunting ground. The apex predators were numerous but disorganized, abundant but unworthy. There was no sport in hunting animals that did not understand they were being hunted. But the new data is different. His sensors do not show him traffic. They show him hunting patterns. Within a single city district, his instruments detect over 40 individuals whose physiological signatures are elevated beyond what standard civilian stress profiles produce. Cortisol management systems trained to suppress fear response. Heart rate variability consistent with active combat experience. Micromuscle tension patterns in the hands that indicate habitual weapons handling. Not soldiers. Something more refined than soldiers. He runs the analysis twice. Both times the conclusion is the same. This city contains a population of apex hunters operating within a formalized social structure. They have hierarchy. They have rules. They have ritual. To a Yachtja, this is not a warning. This is an invitation. He expands the scan across the eastern seaboard. The clusters repeat, smaller but consistent, in a dozen cities. He cross-references the patterns against the homicide data his vessel has been passively collecting from human communication networks. The numbers are surgical, single-point terminations, no collateral, no mess. Someone is managing violence in these cities with the same precision that a good hunter manages a kill zone. He leans back in his seat, a motion that on a human would signal satisfaction, and means something close enough to that in Yachtja body language to be translated similarly. Earth was not a prey world. Earth was a hunting arena. The insertion is quiet. There is no ship. There is no smoke trail. There is only a section of undergrowth that bends as though disturbed by wind, and a presence that takes 6 measured steps and then stops, and stands motionless in the tree line for 47 minutes, while its sensory apparatus maps the environment. He does not rush. Rushing is the error that mediocre hunters make, the error of believing that aggression and speed are synonymous with competence. The mark of a great hunter is that it can be confused for the absence of a hunter. It is patient the way geology is patient. It is still the way deep water is still. It observes the city across the river. It watches 3 separate incidents occur in real time: a contract enforcement action near the docks, a clandestine exchange in a parking structure, a brief and professional altercation outside a hotel that ends in 30 seconds with a body being removed by men who clearly know how bodies are removed, and it catalogs each with the careful attention of a researcher in the field. These humans do not kill for territory. They do not kill for hunger. They kill with the deliberate intention of professionals performing a function within a system. They have code. They have ceremony. There is something almost recognizable in it. A culture of hunters, on a world the Yachtja had dismissed. The old catalogs were wrong. Earth had been hiding something, not armies, something older than armies, something the Yachtja understand at a cellular level, the ancient, ordered pursuit of worthy prey by worthy predators. He opens his wrist device. He begins a new hunt log. The entry timestamp corresponds to no Earth calendar, but if translated, it would read approximately, now. Hunt log entry 1, planetary designation, Sol 3, reclassification recommended. Previous low-yield assessment was based on disorganized predator population. New observation reveals stratified hunter society operating beneath civilian surface layer, structured hierarchy, ritual kill protocols, honor codes governing engagement, assessment, high yield, exceptional, proceeding with individual target selection. Honor demands that the first kill establish the threshold of this world's capability. I will not begin with weakness. He closes the log. He begins to move toward the river. Victor Malone is the kind of man that other dangerous men are cautious around. This is not metaphor. This is operational intelligence maintained in the personnel files of 6 different high-table marker holders, each of whom has at some point considered removing Victor and each of whom, upon honest self-assessment, decided against it. Victor is 51. His knuckles are misshapen from breaks that healed without correction because he never stopped working long enough to let them heal properly. He has a scar that crosses his left eyebrow and descends to his cheekbone, the remnant of a blade that he subsequently used on its owner. He is currently seated at a kitchen table in a Brooklyn safe house, eating a meal he prepared himself, reviewing contract documentation on a device that looks like a phone but is not a phone, and listening to the rain against the window. The safe house has 4 access points, each monitored. It has 3 security personnel on rotating watch, capable men Victor selected personally. The building's perimeter has thermal sensors. The roof has a camera array with no blind spots. Victor is, by every measurable metric available to the High Table's Threat Assessment Division, secure. The cameras record a moment of what looks initially like lens aberration, a heat shimmer, the kind of visual distortion you get from electronic interference or a dying battery in the recording array. The timestamp continues. The image stabilizes. The roof appears empty. At 11:51 p.m., the camera array goes dark. Not dramatically, no spark, no explosion. The feed simply ends, like someone reached into the machinery and turned off the switch with the precise knowledge of exactly which switch to turn. Inside, Victor continues his meal. The door to the stairwell does not open. The window does not open. The ventilation grating is intact. Nothing enters the room in any way that the room's construction would categorize as an entry point. And yet, Victor sets down his fork. He has been in enough rooms where something was wrong to know when something is wrong. He cannot articulate what has changed. The temperature, perhaps. The acoustics. Some subtle alteration in the quality of the air pressure that his body registers before his conscious mind can process it. He begins to reach for the weapon that is always within reach. He does not reach it. Victor Malone, 17 confirmed kills, 23 years in the field, a man whose every instinct was trained to the peak of human refinement, never completed the motion. He had approximately 1 second of clarity. 1 second in which he understood, with the absolute certainty of a man who has delivered death to others, that death had come for him. He never saw what it looked like. The 3 security personnel are alive. This is, in its own way, more distinct than if they were not. Whatever happened in that kitchen made a deliberate choice: take Victor, leave the others. This is a message of a particular kind. I was not here to kill. I was here to hunt. The man from the high table who is first on scene is called Renault. He is not officially the high table's forensic investigator. He is officially nothing. But he is the person they send when they need to understand something that has no conventional explanation, and he has been doing this work for 19 years, and he has never, not once, been unable to construct a plausible theory. He constructs no plausible theory today. There are no bullet wounds. There is no blunt force. There is no sign of struggle, and Victor Malone was not the kind of man who would go without struggle. The thermal burn patterns along the far wall suggest a directed energy source of significant intensity, but the geometry of the burns does not correspond to any directed energy weapon in Renault's extensive database. The burns are not circular or conical. They are irregular, like cauterization from a blade that also generates heat, but no blade leaves those patterns. And then there is the detail that Renault does not include in his written report. The spinal column is missing, extracted with precision that Renault privately can only describe as surgical, not removed violently, not torn, removed, as though it were a component being carefully taken from a mechanism by someone who understood the mechanism completely. As though the person, the thing that did this was interested in Victor Malone not as a target to be eliminated but as a specimen to be preserved. As a trophy. Renault, to his assistant quietly off record, whatever did this. It didn't come here to settle a contract. It came here to make a selection, like it was choosing the first one worth keeping. His assistant says nothing. Neither of them says what they are both thinking, that the assessment Victor was given, that he was secure, monitored, protected, was not wrong. It was simply based on the assumption that the threat would be human, that it would understand doors, that it would use weapons they could identify, that the most dangerous thing in the room would be human. The Continental operates on one foundational principle, and that principle is the reason it has survived for longer than most of the organizations that use its services. No blood on the premises. This is not sentiment. This is engineering. The Continental's neutrality is its product. Remove the neutrality, and you remove the product, and you remove the reason that men and women who would otherwise kill each other on sight agree to check their weapons at the door and share a drink in the bar. Karen stands behind the front desk, the way Karen always stands behind the front desk, with the particular stillness of someone who has seen everything and chosen to categorize everything as simply part of the day's work. He is reviewing the previous evening's security logs. He is doing this calmly. He continues to do this calmly even as he notes, for the third morning in a row, an anomaly in the thermal imaging system that the hotel's security director cannot explain. The thermal overlay shows the hotel exterior at normal ambient temperature. The garden path shows normal ambient temperature. The east wall shows normal ambient temperature. And then for 11 seconds there is a shape, not a heat signature, a heat absence. A figure-shaped void in the thermal data, as though something was there that was neither warmer nor cooler than its surroundings but was there, occupying space, displacing air, and then, on the 12th second, was not. No alarm triggered, no sensor triggered, because the sensors were calibrated to detect temperature variance, and whatever this was produced no temperature variance. It simply watched. Security Director HAYES. To Karen, privately, it's not a malfunction. I've pulled the raw data 3 times. Something was at the east perimeter, something that doesn't show heat. Karen, a pause, how long was it there? HAYES. Based on the displacement shadow and the ambient data, at least 2 hours. Before the thermal glitch made it visible for those 11 seconds, I think it was there for 2 hours, watching the hotel, and we saw nothing. Karen, another pause, longer. Does it appear to have entered the premises? HAYES. No, it stayed outside the boundary, watched the front entrance, watched the garden, and then it was gone. Karen, quietly, it was learning the rules. Hayes looks at him. Karen offers nothing further. He returns to the front desk and places a call that goes to an encrypted line that most people in the building do not know exists. The bar is occupied. It is always occupied. Men and women who have made careers out of situational awareness and the careful management of information sit at tables and do what people in bars always do: talk. Quietly, carefully, about things that would horrify civilians and are simply professional discussion among this particular clientele. Tonight, the professional discussion has one subject. Operative known as Petra. To the woman across from her, leaning forward slightly, Victor Malone. You heard. The woman, I heard, bad business. Petra, bad business is a man gets shot. Bad business is a man gets poisoned. Bad business is a man falls off a building. What happened to Victor is not bad business. What happened to Victor doesn't have a name yet. The woman, the table is calling it an unknown actor. Petra, a short sound that is not quite a laugh, unknown actor. That's the word they use when they don't have a theory. I've worked 11 years under table contract and I have never, not once, heard them use the words unknown actor. At another table, 2 men are having a parallel conversation in a different language, but arriving at the same conclusion. One of them worked the docks. He says that the loading crew found something 3 nights ago, a dead rat, which would not be notable except that it was arranged. Not dead from poison or trap. Dead with its skull opened neatly, like an anatomical demonstration. Left where it could be found. Left as evidence of something's capability or something's curiosity. At the bar itself, a man who has not introduced himself to anyone finishes his drink and sets the glass down with the precise care of someone who is being very deliberate about not drawing attention. He is a tracker, not employed currently by any table faction, which is why he can speak objectively about what he has found. He found a track, one track, in the silt near the river at a location that would have required whatever made the track to have arrived from the water, which is not how human beings typically arrive anywhere at 3 in the morning in the industrial district. The track is large. The depth suggests significant mass. The distribution of weight across the print suggests a biped, but not a human biped. The weight balance is slightly forward of what human gait produces. He did not show this track to anyone official. He photographed it and he left and he came to the bar, and he is now drinking and thinking about the fact that in 22 years of field work he has found tracks from human beings in locations where human beings should not have been, and he has always been able to say yes. This is a human being. This is what they weigh. This is which direction they went. He cannot say that tonight. Something is moving through the underworld, not across it, through it. The way a blade moves through water, barely disturbing the surface, leaving no permanent mark, but altering the temperature of everything it passes through. The assassin class of the High Table Network had built their professional identity around one certainty. They were the apex. They were the thing other things feared. They were the end of the food chain. That certainty is developing a crack, small so far, hairline. But in structures built on certainty, hairline cracks are the beginning of collapse. The adjudicator does not sit. This is a stylistic choice. She conducts all business standing, a preference that most people interpret as aggression, and which is actually simply a refusal to perform the postures of subordination. She is on a call with 3 senior table representatives, and the call has been encrypted at a level the table reserves for situations that cannot be allowed to generate documentation. Adjudicator, Victor was not the only incident. I have 3 additional reports, lower profile, not yet connected by the field teams. A courier disappeared in Milan, found the same burned signature on a service door. An enforcer in Osaka went dark for 48 hours and was found in a condition that the local team described as prepared. And there is a Continental report, New York, of perimeter observation by an entity their systems cannot categorize. Table representative, voice only. Internal compromise. Experimental technology from a faction operating outside protocols. Adjudicator, we've run all internal assessments. No faction has this capability. No faction has the discipline to produce 0 forensic trace across 4 separate incidents in 3 countries. And no faction, no human faction, would leave the escorts alive. Killing Victor and leaving the others is not a message between factions. It is something else. Table representative, selection criteria. Adjudicator, that is my assessment. Whatever is operating in our network is not working under contract. It is not settling debts. It is not acquiring territory. It is selecting targets based on criteria we do not yet understand, and the criteria appear to relate to capability, to status, to recognition as a certain kind of opponent. Table representative, you're describing a hunter. Adjudicator, a pause, I am describing something. NG that has not existed in any record we hold. I am describing something for which the High Table has no protocol and no precedent. I am recommending immediate priority 1 classification, full network alert, and the beginning of a search that I will be honest with you. I do not yet know how to conduct. The call ends. The adjudicator stands in the silence of the relay room and looks at the screen that shows the accumulated incident data. 4 incidents, 4 locations, 4 victims selected from among the most capable operators in the network. She thinks about the detail that keeps returning to her, the Continental surveillance ghost, the thing that watched the hotel for 2 hours without entering, without violating the rule. It knew about the rule, or it understood the rule, or, and this is the interpretation that she keeps returning to against her professional instinct, it respected the rule because it had its own equivalent, and 2 codes of conduct had briefly intersected in the dark outside the hotel at 2 in the morning, and the thing on the other side had chosen to acknowledge the boundary. This is, she thinks, more frightening than if it had simply ignored the boundary. An animal ignores rules because animals do not understand rules. Something that understands rules and chooses when to observe them is not an animal at all. The camera moves across the city in a sequence that does not feel like montage so much as surveillance, smooth, slow, patient, as though the camera itself is watching. In a brownstone in the West Village, an operator checks his perimeter sensors and finds them normal, and does not know that normal has become an insufficient threshold. In a safe house in Queens, 3 table assets sit around a table and speak in low voices about the Victor incident, and none of them say the thing they are all thinking, which is, if it can get to Victor, the thresholds we use to assess our own security are no longer valid. In the Continental bar, The tracker orders another drink and stares at the photograph on his phone, the single track in the silt, and thinks about the weight distribution, and the direction the track was pointing, and the fact that the track was pointing toward the city and not away from it. And somewhere above the city, or within it, or between the buildings in the geometric shadows that form when artificial light cannot reach, something moves. It does not hurry. It observes. It catalogs. It is building a picture of this hunting ground with the patience and precision of a professional, and the picture is becoming very detailed, and the subjects of the picture do not know they are being studied. The high table built its empire on the certainty that it sat at the top of the hierarchy of violence, that it defined the rules, that it determined what constituted a threat, and that anything threatening enough would be visible, would announce itself through observable action, would conform to the known patterns of professional aggression. It never prepared for something that didn't know its rules. That had its own rules. That was not competing for position within the hierarchy, but arriving from entirely outside it. The way an apex predator from one ecosystem arrives in another and finds that its capabilities do not diminish simply because the environment has changed. The Yautja hunter who has been watching this city for 4 days is not interested in the high table. It is not interested in power structures or territory or the politics of the underworld. It is interested in what the underworld contains. The finest warriors a world of 7 billion has produced. Men and women who have dedicated their lives to perfecting the craft of violence and who operate within a system of ritualized rules that the Yautja finds, against all expectation, deeply familiar. It is interested in the hunt, and it is only beginning to choose. There is a category of intelligence that human civilization has never had to account for in its threat models. Not the intelligence of technology, humans understand that. Not the intelligence of collective organization, humans invented that. This is something older and more unsettling. The intelligence of a predator that has been perfecting its methodology for 10,000 years. An intelligence that does not operate on instinct. An intelligence that studies, that adapts. That is, in the truest sense of the word, learning. The river at 4 in the morning holds no witnesses. The industrial piers are dark. The water carries sound poorly, which means that what happens on the water stays on the water, and what watches from the water leaves no trace on either shore. The Yautja hunter has been in the city for 7 days. In those 7 days it has killed once. One selection, carefully made, carefully executed, the trophy taken and catalogued. By the standards of its species hunting protocols, this restraint is extraordinary. A younger hunter would have made 3 or 4 kills by now. A hunter operating on bloodlust rather than craft would have cut through the underworld like a scythe. This hunter is doing something different. This hunter is mapping the architecture of a civilization it did not expect to find. It is not hunting yet, not truly. It is still in the phase that the most accomplished Yautja trackers call the first reading, the methodical accumulation of knowledge that transforms a hunting ground from a location into a system. A lesser hunter sees targets. A great hunter sees relationships. And this city, this underworld within a city, is dense with relationships that reward patient study. The vessel's analytical systems have been processing accumulated observational data for 72 hours. The output is a model, not a map, but a model of the social architecture of the high table network as it exists in this city, and by extension, globally. The Yautja does not have a word for organizational chart. But the concept is not foreign to a species whose own social hierarchy is determined by hunt record and honor standing. Structure is structure. Dominance is dominance. The language differs. The grammar is identical. What the model shows is this. The high table network is not flat. It has layers of capability. At the base are functionaries, drivers, couriers, cleaners, support infrastructure. These are not hunters. They are the ecosystem that enables hunters, the way a forest enables a predator without itself being one. To take one of these would be, in Yautja terms, the equivalent of killing livestock. It would be beneath notice. Above them are the operators, mid-tier enforcers, capable, professional, but not exceptional. Their threat signatures are elevated but not remarkable. The hunter has observed several in the field over the past 5 days and found them competent in the way that a well-maintained tool is competent, efficient within a specific function, not interesting. Above them are the true assets, the ones the high table deploys when precision matters. These have threat signatures that are measurably distinct, not just in combat capability, but in the quality of their attention, the economy of their movement, the readiness that lives in their bodies like a second nervous system. These are the ones who interest the hunter. The hunter marks them, not for immediate action, for study. It wants to understand how they operate within their hierarchy before it begins selection. It wants to understand what constitutes excellence in this culture, so that its choices reflect genuine discrimination. Taking a merely capable opponent would be like a champion entering a tournament and defeating a qualifier in the first round. It would satisfy no protocol. It would demonstrate nothing worth recording. It has identified, in 7 days, 9 individuals whose signatures qualify as high-yield targets. 9, in a city of 8 million. The ratio is almost perfect. Almost exactly the ratio that the Yachtja hunting archives record from the most challenging terrestrial worlds in the catalog. Hierarchy confirmed. 3 tiers of operative capability identified. Ritual rank system appears to be enforced through what can only be described as honor protocols, contract obligations, marker systems, neutral zone enforcement. The similarity to Yachtja code structure is notable. This civilization did not arrive at these rules randomly. These are the rules that emerge from any society organized around the management of lethal skill. The convergence is philosophically significant. Recording for full archive analysis post-hunt. The hunter has positioned itself 40 meters above the warehouse floor, on a structural beam, completely still, completely invisible, watching something that it did not expect to find. A formal duel. 2 men, a dispute over a contract. The details are in a language the hunt does not speak fluently, but the structure is readable. This is not a fight born of anger. There is no anger in either body, no adrenaline spike, no cortisol surge, no elevated aggression markers. This is a ritual, an agreed-upon resolution mechanism. Both men entered this space understanding that one of them would leave it alive, and both men accepted that outcome as the correct and proper response to their disagreement. They square off. They give each other space. There is a moment of stillness before it begins that the hunter recognizes immediately, the stillness before a committed attack, the breath held, the body coiled, and then it is over in 40 seconds. Clean, decisive. One man stands. One man does not. The man who stands does not celebrate. He acknowledges the fallen man with a gesture that the hunter interprets correctly, respect for an opponent who fought well. Then he walks away. The hunter watches this and says nothing, because it is alone. But if it were to speak, if the concepts could be translated across the distance between species and evolutionary history and 10,000 years of divergent culture, it would say something that has no direct equivalent in any human language. It would say the word that Yachtja use for the recognition of kinship in an unexpected place. The discovery of shared principle in alien form. These humans have honor, not all of them, not most of them, but the ones at the apex of this world, the ones whose threat signatures elevate them above the rank of tool. These ones have constructed something recognizable. They have built a code, and they enforce it. The hunter descends from the beam silently and approaches the dead man. It studies him for 40 seconds, the wound pattern, the decision-making that the body's final position implies, the quality of his defensive response in the moment before the killing blow. It is reading the man the way a trainer reads a performance, with professional respect. It does not take him. He was the one who lost. He is not a trophy. The trophy goes to the winner. It will find the winner later. Her name in the field is Kesler. She is 38. She was recruited into high table service at 22 after a military career that ended when she shot an officer who was about to order an action she assessed as tactically indefensible. The high table found this quality, the willingness to substitute her own judgment for institutional authority when the evidence warranted it, more valuable than orthodox compliance. In 16 years of table service, she has never failed a contract. She has never been identified at a scene. She has never been followed successfully. She has, on 3 separate occasions, identified surveillance before the surveillance team knew it had been compromised and reversed the operation completely, turning it from a vulnerability into an advantage. She is, by the assessment of the table's own capability analysts, the most operationally invisible human being currently active in their network. She is currently aware that she is being followed. She has been aware for 40 minutes. She cannot identify the follower. She cannot locate it in any visual field. She cannot hear it. She cannot detect it with any instrument she carries. But the certainty that something is behind her is absolute. The way the certainty that you are being watched is sometimes absolute before any conscious evidence presents itself, the body's older systems registering what the analytical mind hasn't caught up to yet. She has changed direction twice, used a mirror to check her 6, ducked into a stairwell and waited in total silence for 3 minutes. Nothing, no sound, no visual, no heat, and yet the certainty does not diminish. If anything, it sharpens, because what she is feeling is not the anxiety of paranoia. It is the specific, calibrated alertness of a professional who has spent 16 years learning the difference between threat present and threat absent, and the instrument in her chest is reading, present. She stops in the center of the rooftop. She puts her back to a ventilation housing. She faces the open space. She draws her weapon and holds it at low ready, and she waits and she speaks quietly but clearly into the dark. Kesler, I know you're there. I don't know what you are, but you've been with me for 40 minutes and you haven't moved on me, which means you're not here to kill me. So whatever you're doing, I want you to know I see you, even if I can't see you. Silence, nothing moves, nothing answers. And then, just for a moment, the heat shimmer. 5 meters away, at the edge of the rooftop, where nothing was and then something is and then nothing is again. The briefest materialization of a presence that does not wish to be present. She does not fire. Something in her professional instinct tells her that firing into something she cannot fully see at a target that has had 40 minutes to act in her and has chosen not to would be the wrong decision. And Kesler has survived 16 years by making correct decisions. The hunter notes this. It notes the discipline, the control under conditions of maximum threat ambiguity, the choice to assess before committing. It adjusts its evaluation upward. It will return to Kesler. She has earned a place on the selection list, but not tonight. Tonight was only reconnaissance. Tonight was the hunter asking a question, and Kesler's response was the answer it was looking for. The gold coin system of the high table is not currency in the conventional sense. It is more precise than currency. It is a unit of obligation, a standardized token of commitment within a network that cannot use conventional financial instruments because conventional financial institutions ask questions that this network cannot answer. Gold coins are perfect because they require no intermediary, no bank, no record. Just the coin and the action, and the understanding that the action was worth exactly what the coin said it was worth. The bounty issued for information on the unknown entity is unprecedented in 3 respects. First, the denomination, 12 million in gold marker equivalent, which exceeds any bounty in the table's modern operational history. Second, the specification, not dead, not alive, but studied, intelligence only, engagement discouraged. The table, for the first time anyone can recall, has issued a contract that explicitly advises against direct confrontation. Third, and most unprecedented, the bounty has a caveat that Karen has never seen on a table contract before. The caveat reads, in the formal language of table documentation, as follows. Operational note. All strike team engagements against the designated entity are to be considered high attrition probability. Teams are advised that the entity has demonstrated awareness of surveillance methods, adaptive response to tactical patterns, and retention of tactical information between engagements. Direct engagement is not recommended until capability assessment is complete. Treat as Apex class unknown. Karen, reading the document to himself, Apex class unknown. In 22 years, I have never seen the table classify anything as unknown. He sets the document down. He looks at the window. Outside, the city continues, lights, traffic, the ordinary machinery of a world that has no idea what is moving through it. He picks up the internal line and begins a call, and his voice, which is always level, is more level than usual, which is how Karen expresses concern. The first team is 6 men. Ex-military, all of them, with the kind of combined operational experience that the high table's HR division, such as it is, considers elite. They are deployed to Paris, where thermal imaging has detected the anomalous heat signature near a high table coordination hub. They are briefed. They are armed with weapons selected specifically for wide area suppression. They are given heat decoy technology that the table's technical division assembled in 72 hours based on the thermal data recovered from the Brooklyn incident. The theory is that if the entity hunts by heat signature, a sufficiently sophisticated decoy array can disrupt its targeting. The theory is not wrong exactly, it is simply incomplete. The entity identifies the decoys in approximately 8 minutes. The team knows this because for 8 minutes, nothing happens, and then one of the decoy units is disabled, not destroyed, disabled with what the post-incident analysis describes as surgical precision, indicating deliberate choice not to trigger the team's alert protocols. The entity was not fooled. It was studying the trap. It was learning what the trap could do. Then it acts. In 40 seconds, 5 of the 6 men are incapacitated, not killed. The 6th is left standing and uninjured and completely alone, and in possession of all his weapons and all his equipment. He calls in the contact report with the precise voice of a man who is managing something that his training did not prepare him for. Entity engaged. 5 down, non-fatal. Entity did not take weapons, did not take equipment, did not pursue. Assessment: we were not a threat, we were an exercise. The second team is 8 men. The high table has added 2 additional members based on the Paris outcome. The deployment is Berlin. The result is the same structurally with one variation. This time, none of the team is incapacitated. This time, the entity simply reveals itself briefly. The shimmer, the outline, the impossible stillness of a thing that is choosing to be seen, and then disappears. The team finds, when they assess the perimeter afterward, that the entity had been within 3 meters of their position for an estimated 40 minutes before choosing to make itself visible. It was not testing their weapons, it was testing their nerve. The third team is 12 men, and they do not come back, not because they are killed, because they are found the next morning arranged, seated, all 12 of them in a circle in an abandoned factory outside Moscow, their weapons stacked neatly in the center of the circle. Unharmed. Weapons unchambered. The entity had disarmed 12 active operators in the night and arranged them with the deliberate geometry of a statement. The high table understood warfare. It understood attrition and cost-benefit analysis and the language of pressure applied through superior resources. What it did not understand, what it had never had to understand, was an opponent that was not fighting back. An opponent that was absorbing every attack, every trap, every tactical innovation, and using each one as a data point. The high table was not fighting an enemy. It was being studied by something that found it interesting. For the first time in its institutional history, the high table was the thing being hunted. Adjudicator. To the table's senior counsel, I am going to tell you something that our operational doctrine has no category for. What we are dealing with is not an adversary in any framework we possess. It is not a rogue nation-state actor. It is not a technological weapon. It is not a human being operating outside our protocols. What we are dealing with is an apex predator from outside this planet's evolutionary history that has arrived in our operational environment and is conducting what I can only describe, using language I am aware sounds insane, as a hunt. A structured, methodical, honor-governed hunt. Council member, you are asking us to accept that we are dealing with an extraterrestrial intelligence. Adjudicator, I am asking you to accept the evidence. 3 strike teams, 12 countries of observation, 22 days of incident data. The entity selects only high-capability targets. It avoids civilians completely, I mean completely, 0 civilian contact events across 22 days in populated urban environments. It does not kill indiscriminately. It does not destroy infrastructure. It leaves survivors. It leaves messages. It is operating within a code of conduct that is, structurally, not dissimilar to our own. It has rules. It follows them. Council member, then we negotiate with it. Adjudicator, a pause. You cannot bribe something that has no use for currency. You cannot threaten something that does not fear death the way we fear it. It comes from a culture that has ritualized death into the highest expression of honor. You cannot negotiate with something that is not here for anything we have to offer. It is here because we have something it values. And what it values is not our resources or our territory or our compliance. What it values is the quality of our best people as opponents. We are not negotiating partners to it. We are the hunting ground. The hunter has been running a continuous threat assessment of the city's active operator population for 24 days. The model it has built is detailed, individual profiles on 31 high-capability targets, each with behavioral patterns, threat signatures, tactical tendencies. It knows, at this point, more about the professional habits of the High Table's New York-based assets than the High Table's own intelligence division. And then the system flags an anomaly. Not a new entry, not an individual it has not observed before. Something that its own analytical system has been struggling to categorize correctly, flagging and reflagging over multiple days because the data does not fit the existing model well enough to settle into a category. The system finally surfaces the analysis, and the hunter reads it twice. Threat signature, off scale. Initial assessment failure, signature originally categorized as equipment malfunction due to implausibility of reading. Recalibrated. Signature confirmed. Subject WK01 has been present at 4 separate engagement events in the past 11 days, each involving multiple high-capability opponents, each resulting in subject survival and complete elimination of opposition. Survival probability under modeled conditions, 0.003%. Actual outcome, 4 of 4 survival events. Combat adaptation coefficient, highest recorded for any terrestrial organism in planetary database. Subject does not fight. Subject becomes the engagement. The hunter sets down the analysis and is still for a long time. In 47 hunts across 6 planetary systems, it has encountered 6 organisms that it has classified as Apex Challenge, a designation reserved for prey that elevates the hunt from selection to true test. The last Apex Challenge it faced cost it the left orbital bone and 3 months of recovery. It still counts that hunt among its best. It runs the WK01 analysis again. It looks at the 4 engagement events in detail. The body count in each. The adaptive patterns, not just survival instinct, but genuine real-time tactical evoluti. On, adjusting to the specific capabilities of each opponent mid-engagement, rerouting the fight's variables as they change. And one other detail that the analysis surfaces, the man mourns. Between the killing and the next engagement, there is a consistent biometric pattern that the system initially flagged as anomalous and then correctly identified. Grief. This human carries something with him. Loss. Something was taken from him, and he is operating in the aftermath of that loss, and the grief does not diminish his capability, it focuses it. It gives his violence a quality that the hunter, who understands this particular phenomenon from its own culture's tradition of revenge hunts, recognizes immediately. He is not killing to survive, he is surviving to kill, and then surviving again and again. The hunter marks the file, not for study, not for observation. The file is marked with the designation that, in the Yotja hunting archive, indicates the highest possible classification of worthy opponent. It marks him chosen. John Wick moves through the night the way water moves through a system of pipes, following the path that offers least resistance, filling the available space, arriving at the destination with the quiet certainty of something that does not question its own trajectory. He is on contract. The details of the contract are not important. What is important is that he has been moving through this city for 6 hours, and 3 hours ago something changed. He doesn't know what changed. He couldn't describe it if asked. But John Wick has survived everything that has been thrown at him, survived it not because he is invulnerable, but because the instrument in his body that reads threat present versus threat absent is tuned to a frequency that most human beings never access. And 3 hours ago, without any identifiable triggering event, that instrument moved. Not to full alert, not to combat imminent, to something subtler, observed. He continues moving. He completes the contract clean, 30 seconds, exactly as planned. He exits the building via the route he designated in advance. He makes 3 direction changes that are not on any pre-planned route. Standard counter-surveillance protocol. The feeling does not go away. He finds a doorway and stands in it for 4 minutes in total stillness, watching the street. Nothing moves that should not move. Nothing is where it should not be. The thermal readout on his phone shows nothing anomalous. He is standing in a city of 8 million, and there is no reason, by any conventional assessment, to feel that he is being watched. He is absolutely certain that he is being watched. He does not sleep. He sits at the window and reviews the preceding 72 hours with the methodical attention of a man conducting a post-incident analysis. He is looking for the pattern. There is always a pattern. When something is following you, it makes choices, and choices leave signatures, and signatures reveal the logic of the thing making them. He writes nothing down. He holds it in his mind, the discipline of a professional who understands that written material is evidence, and evidence creates vulnerability. The review takes 2 hours. And by the end of it, he has found 3 things. First, in the last 11 days, 3 high-table assets have disappeared or died under circumstances that the table's communications are describing with a careful vagueness that Wick has learned over many years is the vagueness they use when they don't have an explanation. 2 of those 3 individuals he knew personally. 2 of those 3 were among the best operators he had encountered in his career. Victor Malone. Kesler not dead, apparently, but changed, unreachable, as though she had been through something that had recalibrated her in ways she was not prepared to discuss. Second, the gunfire timing is wrong. He has been involved in 2 street engagements in the past 6 days, and in both cases, there was a delay between the initiation of the engagement and the moment that support fire from the opposing side arrived that does not fit the standard deployment pattern. As though something was disrupting the timing. As though something was watching the engagement and at a critical juncture chose not to intervene, chose to observe. Third, and this is the one that sits in his chest with the specific weight of a fact that demands to be taken seriously, twice in the past 4 days, he has walked through spaces where the air was wrong. Not temperature wrong, not smell wrong, just wrong. The way a room is wrong when something has recently been in it that is larger than the room usually contains. An absence that has the shape of a presence. He sits with these 3 things for a long time. Wick to himself very quietly, "You're not trying to kill me." The silence of the hotel room does not confirm or deny this, but the silence feels, in a way he can, rationally account for, like it is being listened to. He thinks about what it means to be followed by something that is not trying to kill you. In his world, the options are narrow. Surveillance for intelligence gathering, protection detail from an unknown patron, or assessment, being watched the way you watch something before you decide whether to engage with it. He has been assessed before, by the high table when they were deciding whether to deploy him, by other operators casing him before a contract, by enemies building a dossier before a move. But those assessments had a human logic to them, a comprehensible motivation. The assessment he is feeling now has a different quality. It has patience that goes beyond what any human intelligence operation would sustain. It has a completeness, a thoroughness, that feels less like data gathering and more like something he can only describe inadequately as appreciation. Whatever is out there has watched him fight, has watched him survive things he should not have survived, and has not moved on him. John Wick has been afraid before. He knows what fear feels like, and he does not flinch from it. Fear is information, and he processes information. But what he is feeling right now, in the dawn quiet of the Continental, is something adjacent to fear and stranger than fear. It is the feeling of having been selected, of having been found worthy of something he does not yet understand, of being, for reasons he cannot articulate, on the right side of a threshold that other, very capable people were apparently on the wrong side of. He is not being hunted, not yet. He is being invited. The hunter watches him from 200 meters, cloaked, motionless, perched on the edge of a water tower with the absolute stillness of something that was born to patience. It watches the silhouette in the hotel window, the still figure sitting, thinking, running the analysis that the hunter already knows the man is running, because the quality of his stillness is the stillness of active cognition, not passive waiting. He is figuring it out. The hunter expected to choose among many and find one worthy. It did not expect to find one worthy and have the one worthy begin to understand what was happening on its own. This development is the hunter searches for the correct calibration of the concept pleasing. It elevates the hunt from selection to dialogue, from pursuit to encounter. This human is not going to be caught unaware. When the engagement comes, it will come between two individuals who have both had time to prepare, to assess, to decide. That is as close to an equal contest as the hunter has encountered in 47 hunts. WK01 has identified the observation, not the source, not yet, but the fact of it. His response to identification is not panic, not flight, not aggressive countermeasure. His response is analysis. He is building a model of me from available evidence, the same way I built a model of this world. He is treating me as a system to be understood. This is the correct response. This is the response of a hunter who has found himself in a new kind of hunt and is adapting in real time. Engagement timeline to be determined by mutual readiness. This hunt will not be ambush. This hunt will be chosen by both parties. Recording. The choosing is complete. The hunt begins when he is ready. The hunter closes the log. It does not move from its position. It continues to watch the figure in the window, and the figure in the window continues to think, and the dawn comes up over the city and lights both of them in the same gray light. The predator on the rooftop and the man in the window, two different kinds of apex separated by glass and air, and the particular silence of a moment just before something changes. The city does not know what is about to happen. The high table does not know what is about to happen. John Wick is beginning to know what is about to happen. And the hunter, for the first time in a hunt that has spanned 3 weeks and a dozen countries, and the full resources of the most powerful criminal organization on Earth, feels something that its species reserves for the rarest of occasions. It feels anticipation. In a Continental safe room, the adjudicator sits before a map covered in incident markers and thinks about what it means to face an opponent you cannot categorize. Every protocol she has ever been trained to execute assumes a human adversary operating within a human framework of motivation. Remove the human framework and every protocol becomes a theory, and theories are not what keep people alive. In the Continental bar, Kesler sits with a drink she is not drinking and turns her glass slowly on the table and says nothing. She was on that rooftop. She felt it watching her. She gave it the most honest thing she had, acknowledgement without aggression, without surrender, and it let her go. She does not know what to do with what that means. She does not know whether she was shown mercy or courtesy or something that has no word in any human language she speaks. In an encrypted communications relay, the High Tables Council reviews the Third Team Moscow report and decides, quietly, to suspend further direct engagement operations. Not publicly, not formally, but the decision is made. They do not know how to fight this. They are going to have to find someone who might. And in a hotel room in the early morning, John Wick stands up from the window. He has been sitting for 3 hours. He has completed his analysis. He knows not everything, but enough. He knows that something has chosen him. He knows it has been watching him long enough to understand what he is capable of. He knows that it has chosen to mark him not as a target, but as a counterpart, an opponent worthy of engagement on its own terms. He doesn't know what those terms are yet. But he has spent his entire adult life learning how to operate within systems of rules that other people set. He has been here before, not here exactly, but the shape of it is familiar. The shape of being in a situation you did not choose, facing an opponent you do not fully understand, where the only option is to be as completely yourself as you know how to be and trust that being completely yourself is sufficient. He picks up his jacket, he checks his weapon, he opens the door. The High Table built its empire on the certainty that it was the apex. Phase 1 dismantled that certainty. Phase 2 replaced it with something worse than uncertainty, knowledge. The knowledge that there was a hierarchy above the hierarchy, that the world which thought it controlled death was itself being evaluated by something that had perfected death into art. But the ending of Phase 2 does not belong to the High Table. It does not belong to the adjudicator, or the council, or the 12 teams who were made into examples. It belongs to one man, walking out of a hotel into the morning, fully aware that he is the most observed human being on Earth right now, and choosing to walk toward that observation rather than away from it. John Wick is not going to run. John Wick has never run. The hunt, the real hunt, the one between equals, begins now. Civilization is not a building. It is not a government, a currency, a treaty, or a flag. Civilization is an agreement between people who would otherwise destroy each other to instead observe a set of rules that make coexistence more profitable than war. The agreement doesn't require everyone to be good. It requires everyone to be interested in the alternative to chaos. The High Table understood this. It was, in its own brutal way, a civilization. Murder by contract rather than murder by impulse. Violence with rules rather than violence without them. The gold coin instead of the drawn gun. The neutral zone instead of the permanent battlefield. Strip away the moral horror of what the table does, and what remains is the fundamental logic of every human institution that has ever worked. Restraint is more powerful than release. Tonight, that agreement is ending. The Continental lobby is quieter than it has been in living memory. Not peaceful quiet. Held breath quiet, the kind of quiet that precedes something that has not happened before and that everyone in the room can feel arriving the way you feel pressure change before a storm, not hearing it, not seeing it, just knowing in the body's older systems that the atmosphere itself has shifted and that what is coming will not resemble what came before. Karen stands at the front desk. He always stands at the front desk, but tonight, he is standing with the specific stillness of a man who has completed his preparations and is now simply waiting for the world to catch up to what he already knows is coming. The first power outage hits at 11:47 p.m. It is not a citywide failure. It is surgical specific blocks, specific buildings, the infrastructure nodes that support the High Table surveillance network in the lower Manhattan operational zone. The lights in the Continental flicker once and then stabilize, because the Continental runs on independent power that was installed decades ago precisely against the possibility of external disruption. Everything outside the Continental does not stabilize. The power failures are not random. They follow a pattern that the high table's technical analysts, working at emergency speed with equipment that is itself compromised, will spend 6 hours trying to decode before arriving at a conclusion that none of them are willing to put in their report. The pattern targets infrastructure in ascending order of operational importance. First, the secondary communications relays, then the primary surveillance nodes, then the encrypted coordination hubs. Then, last and most devastating, the dead drops, the physical cache locations where field operatives store emergency resources, backup identities, weapons. The entity has been studying the table's infrastructure for 29 days. It has mapped every node. And now, with the methodical precision of something that has done this before on other worlds in other contexts, it is disassembling the framework. Not to destroy, to strip. It is removing the scaffolding of institutional violence to reveal what lives underneath, the raw, unmediated capability of the individual. It is, in operational terms, doing exactly what a hunter does when it drives prey from the forest into open ground. It is removing the cover. Adjudicator, the surveillance blackout is now citywide. We have lost tracking on 41 active field assets. Communication integrity is at 30% and falling. I need authorization to suspend Continental protocols. Table Counsel, Senior Voice. You understand what you're asking. If we suspend Continental protocols. Adjudicator. Everything collapses into open engagement. I know, but we no longer have the infrastructure to enforce the protocols. We are already in open engagement. We simply haven't acknowledged it yet. Acknowledging it at least gives our assets permission to respond without waiting for authorization that is not going to arrive through compromised channels. Council Voice, authorization granted, Continental protocols suspended, all rules suspended until further notice. Neutral zones are. Adjudicator, I understand. Council Voice, God help whoever is out there. Adjudicator, I don't think God is the relevant reference point for this particular situation. The line closes. The adjudicator sits in the relay room as the lights flicker again and holds the decision she has just authorized in both hands, metaphorically, feeling its weight. She has worked within the high table structure for 19 years. She has enforced rules that most of the world would classify as monstrous, but she has enforced them consistently. And consistency is the foundation of any system of order, and order, even brutal order, is better than the alternative. She has just authorized the alternative. When the Continental protocols fall, what follows is not chaos, not immediately. What follows is a terrible, specific kind of freedom, the freedom of people who have spent their careers operating within a system of rules, suddenly discovering that the rules are gone, and that the instincts the rules were suppressing are still very much present. Old contracts are settled. Old grievances find expression. Operators who have been in careful professional equilibrium with each other for years make decisions that the existence of the rules had previously made inadvisable. The underworld does not collapse into random violence. It collapses into purposeful violence, which is somehow more frightening. Every engagement deliberate, every choice made by someone who has thought carefully about what they are doing and decided to do it anyway. But above the human violence, moving through it without contributing to it, is the hunter. It watches the collapse of structure with something that the hunt log records as professional recognition. It has seen this before, on other worlds, in other hunts, the moment when the prey society's organizing framework gives way and what remains is the pure signal of individual capability unclouded by institutional mediation. This is the moment the hunter has been engineering for 29 days, not because it wanted to destroy the table's civilization, because it needed to see what existed beneath it. What it finds, beneath the gold coins and the Continental protocols and the elaborate ritual architecture of the high-table world, is what it expected and hoped for. People who are, stripped of structure, exactly as dangerous as they appeared to be within it. The rules did not make them capable. The rules contained them. Remove the rules and the capability expands in every direction. The structure has been removed, observing response patterns. Confirmation: this civilization's warrior class does not require institutional scaffolding to function at apex level. They default to excellence. The collapse of the system has not diminished the prey, it has revealed them. This world is everything the early assessment suggested and more. Initiating final phase. WK-01 location confirmed. The ground is ready. The hunt enters its final stage. The hunt log closes. The hunter turns toward the east side of the city, where a single figure is moving through the dark with the economy of motion that distinguishes him from every other operator in the field tonight, moving not toward safety, not away from the chaos, but toward it, toward the source. John Wick is already coming. He chose this location because it is the right kind of space. He has been in enough engagements to know, intuitively, when a space fits the shape of what is coming. And what is coming requires openness, sight lines in multiple directions, enough structural complexity for movement but not enough cover to allow the kind of long-range engagement that would turn this into something it is not supposed to be. He does not know what it is supposed to be, but he knows what it is not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be an ambush. It is not supposed to be an execution. Whatever logic is driving the thing that has been watching him for 11 days, the logic is not the logic of an assassin completing a contract. He felt that clearly enough in the hotel room 2 days ago. Whatever this is, whatever it wants something that requires both of them to be present and capable in choosing. So he chose ground that makes that possible. He is, in a way he couldn't fully articulate, attempting to be a courteous host. He stands in the middle of the open floor. He does not take cover. He keeps his weapons holstered. He faces the dark at the far end of the dock and he waits, and his heartbeat measured against the silence is 62. Not elevated, not suppressed. His body is operating at the threshold between rest and readiness, at the precise edge where the fastest possible response lives. For 40 seconds, nothing happens. Then the shimmer begins. It is different this time from every previous observation. Previous shimmers were accidents, brief failures in the cloaking system under specific conditions, or deliberate choices to reveal presence without revealing form. This shimmer is intentional and complete. It starts at the edges and moves inward, the way a photograph develops, and what it reveals is not the impression of a shape or the suggestion of a presence, but the full, unmediated reality of what has been in this city for 29 days. John Wick looks at it for a long moment. His face does not change. His heartbeat does not change. Whatever is happening in his mind, and a great deal is happening in his mind, none of it surfaces. The hunter, for its part, looks at him. They regard each other across 15 meters of concrete floor in a dry dock at 1:30 in the morning. Two apex predators of entirely different evolutionary origin. And the moment has a quality that neither of them has felt before because neither of them has been in this precise situation, Biff. Or the quality of mutual recognition between things that are used to being the only one of their kind in any room they occupy. Wick, you've been watching me for 11 days. The hunter does not respond in any language Wick speaks, but something in its posture, the deliberate stillness, the forward orientation, the absence of the cloaking device now deactivated and held openly at its side, communicates with a clarity that doesn't require shared language. Yes, I have been watching, and I am here now, choosing to be here in this space with you without concealment. Wick reads this correctly. Wick, not a contract, not the table. You're here for something else entirely, aren't you? The hunter tilts its head, a minimal motion, something that, in its species body language, indicates a correct observation being acknowledged. Wick, you came here to hunt. And then, before he finishes the word, the plasma caster on the hunter's shoulder rotates. Not toward him, to the side, a deliberate gesture of removal, an explicit indication that the ranged weapon is not part of what is being offered here. The hunter reaches up and deactivates it entirely. Then it reaches to its wrist and removes a secondary device. Then it steps back, creating space, and opens its hands, a gesture that crosses the species boundary cleanly, because open hands mean the same thing in most contexts across most cultures. I am offering you terms. The terms are simple. They require no shared language to communicate. The hunter has removed its ranged advantage. It is offering close quarters. It is offering contact. It is offering the kind of engagement where the outcome is determined by the quality of the individual rather than the quality of the weapon. It is offering Wick a fair fight. John Wick has been offered many things in his life. His freedom, his safety, his life on terms he found unacceptable, money which he has never cared about, mercy which he has never asked for. He has been offered peace once at the cost of everything that mattered to him, and he declined. He has never been offered this, genuine respect from something that has earned the right to offer it, by watching him long enough to see what he actually is. He removes his jacket. He checks his weapons once. This is ritual, not necessity, the same way a pianist runs scales before a performance and sets the primary sidearm on the ground. He keeps the knives. He looks at the hunter across 15 meters of open floor. Wick, okay. What follows does not have a clean shape. It does not follow the choreography of a movie fight, where the combatants take turns. It does not have the rhythm of a boxing match, where there are rounds and corners and someone watching the clock. It has the shape of a conversation between two people who speak the same language in completely different dialects, understanding each other perfectly, agreeing on nothing. The hunter is faster than Wick. Significantly faster in the first exchange, the gap between a species that evolved on a world with higher gravity and a human nervous system is not nothing, and the hunter's first strike carries a force that sends Wick into a structural support hard enough to crack 3 ribs. He knows immediately. He does not stop. He does what John Wick does. He adapts. The hunter's speed is an advantage in direct lines. Wick stops fighting in direct lines. He begins working angles, using the dock's structural elements not as cover, but as redirection tools, forcing engagements into geometries where the hunter's superior reach becomes a liability. He is reading the hunter's movement patterns the way he reads every opponent's patterns, cataloging tendencies, building a model of the decision-making beneath the physical capability. The hunter notices this. It is delighted. Not theatrically, not visibly, but in the hunt log running continuously in the back of its cognition, it marks the adaptation. Prey recognized the pattern and altered approach within 90 seconds. This is not learned behavior. This is real-time tactical evolution. The Yotja archives record this quality in perhaps 1 organism per 50 hunts. It is what separates a great hunt from a merely exceptional one. It adjusts its own approach in response, and the fight enters a second phase that is entirely different from the first. Not strength against strength, but strategy against strategy. 2 intelligences probing each other's decision-making through the medium of controlled violence. Wick finds the wound. It is not luck. Luck is not a currency he has ever trusted. It is observation applied at the speed of combat. He has been watching the hunter's right side for 6 minutes, noting a micro-hesitation in the rotation, a fraction of a second delay in the recovery that shouldn't be there in a body otherwise moving at that capability level. Old wound. Something healed but not fully integrated. He files this. When the moment arrives, a window of 2 seconds, no more, where the hunter has committed to a forward position and cannot recover to the right faster than a human being can close the distance, he takes it. Not with full force, with precision. A blade placed at the specific angle that the hesitation tells him will find the original injury site. The hunter is hit. The sound it makes is not pain in any register Wick recognizes from human biology. It is something lower, something that resonates in the chest rather than registering in the ears. A sound that means the same thing across species, even if its acoustics are entirely alien. The hunter steps back, not retreating, reassessing. It looks at the wound and then it looks at Wick, and something passes across the alien architecture of its face that requires no translation manual. It was not expecting that. Not the wound itself. Wounds are acceptable. Wounds are part of the exchange. What it was not expecting was the method, the patience, the 6-minute accumulation of data that produced a single, perfectly placed strike. It was expecting strength. It found intelligence. The hunter has been wounded in 47 hunts. It carries the marks of those wounds the way a soldier carries medals, not with vanity, but with the specific pride of someone who has paid for every lesson they've learned. Being wounded means you engaged with something worth engaging with. The wound is the evidence of a worthy opponent. No opponent has ever wounded it with strategy rather than strength. No opponent has ever beaten its physical superiority by being patient enough to find a door that superior physical capability could not close. It stands in the dry dock and looks at the human across the floor and feels something it has not felt in 47 hunts. The particular, profound satisfaction of having found exactly what it came for. They are both damaged. Wick has the 3 cracked ribs, a dislocated left shoulder he has reset himself mid-engagement without stopping, and a burn across his right forearm from a secondary weapon he did not anticipate and could not fully avoid. The hunter has the blade wound, and 2 additional points of impact from Wick's adaptation, moments where the human's reading of the fight proved accurate enough to land against a body moving faster than human reflexes should be able to track. They have been fighting for 93 minutes. Neither of them has, at any point, attempted to kill the other in a way that the other could not theoretically respond to. The engagement has had the quality, Wick recognized this somewhere around minute 40, and filed it with everything else he was filing, of a controlled exchange rather than a death match. Both parties have been operating at a level below their maximum destructive capacity. Both parties have been, in some sense, pulling their punches. Not out of mercy, out of extension, neither of them wants this to end. Wick breathes carefully, managing the ribs, and looks at the hunter and thinks about the last 93 minutes with the analytical part of his mind that does not stop running even when every other system is at capacity. He has been in longer engagements. He has been in more dangerous engagements. Objectively, situations where the mathematical probability of his survival was lower than tonight's. But he has never been in an engagement that felt like this. He has never had an opponent that he wanted to understand rather than simply defeat. He is not going to defeat this. He knows that. If it chose to kill him right now, the damage it has absorbed tonight would not stop it. It is still, even wounded, operating at a capability level that exceeds what he can overcome with available resources. But it is not choosing to kill him. Wick, you're not here to finish it. The hunter is still. Then it does something entirely unexpected. It reaches to its chest not for a weapon and removes a small device. It holds it up. The device activates, and from it comes a sound that is recognizably an audio playback, and what it plays back is the sound of the dry dock from 6 minutes ago. Wick's footsteps, the specific pattern of approach, the angle of attack. The hunter has been recording the engagement, not for tactical analysis, for the archive, for the record of a hunt that it intends to preserve. It is showing Wick what he is from the hunter's perspective, evidence, proof, record. Not a target, a trophy in the original meaning of the word before the word was corrupted into something merely decorative, a testament, a monument to something worth remembering. John Wick has been many things in his life, and most of them were assigned to him by other people. Asset, weapon, monster, legend. The Baba Yaga, the thing that men use to frighten other things. He has never fully inhabited any of these designations because all of them were descriptions of his function, not his nature. They described what he did, not what he was. What the hunter is showing him, through the recording device in the archive and the patient, precise manner in which it has been studying him for 29 days, is something different. It is showing him what it sees: a warrior, not a weapon, not a tool, not an asset. A warrior with all the gravity and honor that word carries in a culture that has organized its entire civilization around the concept. It is, in its way, the most genuine recognition he has ever received. He looks at the device for a long time, then he looks at the hunter. Then he nods, once minimal, the only gesture available to him that crosses the language barrier cleanly enough to say, "I understand what you're telling me. I receive it." The hunter holds his gaze for 3 seconds. Then it inclines its head, a mirror of his nod, executed with the ceremonial precision of something that has protocols for exactly this moment. The acknowledgement of a worthy encounter, the formal recognition of an opponent who has met the threshold. The city is quieter than it was 4 hours ago. The collapse of the table's infrastructure did not produce permanent chaos. It produced a night of it, and now the night is ending, and what is left in the aftermath is a kind of hollowed-out stillness, like the silence after a building has been demolished. The structure is gone. The space where it stood is still there. It just doesn't know what it is yet. Wick sits on a concrete ledge outside the dry dock and does not move for a long time. His ribs make breathing a considered act. His arm has a field dressing on it that he applied himself. He is looking at the city, the skyline beginning to catch the first gray light, the lights of the bridges, the geometry of a place he knows as well as he knows anything. The hunter is gone. He does not know when it left. At some point between the acknowledgement and now, it simply ceased to be present, the way it always ceased to be present, completely, without transition, as though presence and absence were states it could move between without the intermediate step of going somewhere. He does not know what happens next. This is unusual. John Wick has always, at every stage of his life, known the operational parameters of his situation with enough clarity to form a plan. He does not have a plan. He has 93 minutes of experience that he is still processing, and a city that has just had its governing framework dismantled, and the understanding that something has changed in a way that cannot be changed back. The hunter is already back aboard. It moves through the vessel with the deliberate care of something managing significant physical damage, and it sits before the archive system, and it begins the transmission. The transmission is not short. It contains 29 days of observational data, the threat signatures of 31 identified high-capability targets, the structural analysis of the high-table network, the tactical assessment of the warrior culture it found beneath the civilian surface, the engagement record from the dry dock, and the full biometric documentation of WK-01. Every movement pattern, every adaptation, every decision point, the wound delivered by strategy rather than strength, the 93-minute duration of an engagement that the hunter's own combat projection systems had estimated would resolve in 11 minutes. All of it goes into the archive. All of it is transmitted to the relay stations in the outer system, where it will propagate across the Yachtja network to hunting clans on a dozen worlds. The hunter then opens the planetary catalog, the ancient database that rates worlds according to hunting yield, and navigates to Earth's entry. The entry that has been marked, for as long as the Yachtja have known this world existed, with the designation that translates most closely as not recommended. It changes the designation. Sol 3, Earth, previous classification, low-yield disorganized predator population, revised classification, elite hunting ground, Tier 1 designation. A warrior culture exists beneath the civilian surface of this world, structured, honor-governed, self-selecting for peak capability across generations. The finest individual specimen encountered across 47 hunts. Engagement duration, 93 minutes. Wound delivered by strategy, not by strength. Recommend unrestricted access. Recommend priority classification for all clan hunt requests. This world has been practicing. It was not ready 10 years ago. It may not be ready for what comes next, but it is no longer prey. It is a hunting arena, and arenas of this quality do not go uninvited for long. The hunter closes the archive. It initiates departure sequence. The vessel adjusts orbit and begins the trajectory that will take it away from this world and toward the next. Behind it, Earth shrinks in the observation port, a blue-gray sphere, ordinary from this distance, holding no indication of what lives inside it: the gold coins, the Continental, the adjudicator's empty relay room, the operators moving through a city without rules, and one man sitting on a concrete ledge watching the dawn come up over a skyline. The hunter watches it until it is no longer visible. Then it turns away. Karen is still at the desk. He has been at the desk all night. This is not unusual. Karen has spent many nights at the desk, but the nature of this particular night is unusual enough that he is processing it with the careful attention of a man who understands that what has just happened will require a period of assessment before its full implications are clear. The adjudicator arrives at 6:15. She looks like she has not slept, which she has not. She approaches the desk and Karen prepares to pour tea without being asked, because Karen always knows what is needed before it is asked. Adjudicator, the infrastructure is beginning to come back online. The surveillance nodes that weren't physically destroyed are rebooting. We're starting to get a picture of the night. Karen and Adjudicator, 31 incidents across the city. 24 of them are explainable table business settling old debts in the absence of enforcement. The remaining 7 are not. 7 locations where we have physical evidence of the entity's presence and no fatalities. 7. It was in the city all night during the collapse of our infrastructure, and it chose not to use that window for additional kills. Karen, because it wasn't here for kills. Adjudicator, it was here for one engagement. In Brooklyn Navy Yard, we found the site. The evidence of the engagement is significant. Karen and Mr. Wick. Adjudicator, a pause that contains more information than the words that follow it. Alive. Injured. He checked out of the Continental at 7 this morning. He did not leave a forwarding address. He did not file an incident report. He requested no medical support. He simply left. Karen and the entity. Adjudicator, gone. Our tracking systems, what remains of them, show no further anomalous signatures in the city. No thermal voids. No surveillance disruption. Our technical division believes it has left the operational area entirely. Karen considers this. He pours his own tea. He looks at the lobby, still quiet, still in that held-breath state that it has been in since last night, and he allows himself the specific small exhale of a man releasing something he has been carrying for 30 days. Karen, is it over? Adjudicator, I think this particular visit is over. Whether it's over, I genuinely don't know, and I'm not sure that not knowing is something we can resolve by investigation. Karen, what do we do? Adjudicator, standing, looking at the lobby, the desk, the quiet machinery of the Continental, we rebuild the protocols. We restore the infrastructure. We reestablish the rules. Because the rules are the only thing that makes this, all of this, survivable. And we proceed as though that is sufficient. Karen, do you believe it is sufficient? Adjudicator, I believe it's all we have. The camera does not choose. This is deliberate. What follows is not a single ending but 4 truths existing in parallel, each valid, each supported by the evidence of what has occurred, each pointing toward a different understanding of what the 30 days meant and what they set in motion. The audience must carry all 4. None can be discarded. That is the psychological contract of this story. Somewhere in the outer system, a transmission is propagating. It is reaching hunting clans who have never heard of Earth, who have never considered this small blue world worthy of their attention. They are reading the archive now. They are reading the engagement record. They are reading the 93 minutes. They are reading the wound delivered by strategy rather than strength. And somewhere in that transmission, in the biometric documentation and the planetary reclassification and the Tier 1 designation, is a name, not in any human language, not in any alphabet any human linguist has yet encountered, that refers to a specific human individual. The one who lasted 93 minutes. The one who found the door that superior physical capability could not close. John Wick has survived every assassin the High Table has sent. He has survived every contractor, every army, every institution that has attempted to kill him. He has survived because he is better than the things that were sent for him. He has just been entered into a registry where better than human is the entry threshold. Consider the alternative. Consider that the wound in the dry dock was deeper than the hunt log recorded. Consider that the hunter, for all its precision, miscalibrated the damage. Consider that the vessel, accelerating away from Earth on its departure trajectory, carries a hunter that will not make the next plan. In this version, the transmission still goes. The archive still propagates. The planetary reclassification still reaches every clan in the network. The hunter's death does not retract the data, it confirms it. A world that killed a Yachtja who had survived 47 previous hunts. A world that produced an opponent who could find the door that 47 previous opponents could not. The death does not close the door. The death is the advertisement. A world that can kill one of them is more interesting than a world that cannot. The infrastructure comes back online. The protocols are reestablished. The adjudicator issues the directives and the table's machinery begins to reassemble itself, because the table's machinery always reassembles itself. That is what it is designed to do, and it is very well designed. But something has changed that the restoration of infrastructure cannot repair. The table suspended its own rules. For one night, it acknowledged that there was something it could not govern, something outside its framework of control, and it responded by dismantling its own framework rather than admitting that the framework was insufficient. It chose chaos over the acknowledgement of external authority. The table's operators remember this. They remember the night the gold coin stopped meaning anything. They remember being told that neutral zones were unprotected. They remember the specific terror of a world without rules, not because of what the hunter did in that unprotected night, but because of what they themselves did. What they discovered was in themselves when the rules were gone. The table will rebuild its protocols, but some of its operators will never trust those protocols the same way again, because they know, now, that the protocols exist at the discretion of the table, and the table's discretion lasted exactly as long as the table's confidence in its own control. The civilization of the underworld survived, but the faith in it, the genuine belief that the rules were permanent, that the gold coin was an absolute, that the Continental was inviolable, did not survive with it. Some structures, once cracked, hold their shape only from habit. This is the one that no one in the story says aloud. This is the one that lives between the lines. The Yachtja planetary catalog has been maintained for a very long time, much longer than any human civilization has existed, much longer than the High Table, than the Roman Empire, than the written word. And in all that time, in all those cataloged worlds, the designation not recommended did not mean those worlds lacked warriors. It meant those warriors weren't ready yet. Ready implies a threshold. A threshold implies that the threshold keepers have been watching, not once, not on a single visit, periodically, systematically, returning to loyal designations on a schedule that spans centuries and checking, not yet, not yet, not yet, now. The question that nobody in the story thinks to ask, because nobody in the story has the context to think it, is how long Earth has been on the not yet list, how many previous visits there have been, how many previous encounters in previous centuries that produced no archive entry because the warrior on the other side didn't make the threshold, How many people across how many generations were tested and found insufficient, their encounters never recorded because they were not worth recording. The High Table believes it is the oldest institution in the history of organized violence. It believes its protocols are the most sophisticated framework for the management of lethal skill that human civilization has produced. It may be correct, and it may be that human civilization, at its apex, has just barely crossed a threshold that something else set for it long before any gold coin was minted, or any Continental was built, or any man ever walked into a room full of enemies and didn't come back out the same. The assassin world believed it ruled death. It built an empire on that belief. It created ceremony and protocol, and the architecture of a civilization that treats killing as a managed profession, and governs it with the same elaborate ritual that other civilizations use to govern commerce and law and the transfer of power. And for all of that, for all the gold coins and the Continental protocols and the adjudicator's authority and the High Table's global reach, what it actually was, all along, was a practice. A species learning to hunt. Getting ready. Without knowing what it was getting ready for. The camera ascends. It begins at street level, the Continental, unremarkable from the outside, the gold coin above the door catching the early light, and it rises, past the mid-rise buildings, past the skyline, past the point where the city becomes a geometry of light and steel against the blue, past the point where the atmosphere thins and the blue darkens toward black. From this altitude, H is what it has always been from this altitude, ordinary, blue and gray and luminous with its own light. A small world in a large system, a small system in a large galaxy. The camera holds here. The city is invisible from this distance. Everything that happened in it over the past 30 days is invisible. The gold coins and the kill records and the spinal trophies and the 93-minute engagement and Karen at the desk and Wick on the concrete ledge and the adjudicator's long pauses, all of it invisible. Subsumed into the blue-gray ordinary beauty of a planet that looks, from here, entirely peaceful. Somewhere in the black beyond the frame, a vessel is accelerating away from this world. In its archive, the reclassification has been made. The transmission is already propagating. The camera holds on Earth for a long moment. Then, very slowly, it begins to move away. The last image is not the city. It is not John Wick. It is the sky above the city, dark at the edges, full of things that have not arrived yet, waiting to be earned. Planetary Archive, Sol 3, entry updated, YAUTJA Hunt Record 48 designation, Elite Hunting Ground status, active, next scheduled visit, pending clan request, note, warrior class now fully matured, approach with appropriate preparation. This world bites back.